Hey there. So, I have a question for you. Have you ever been so cold that the air itself felt like it was shattering against your skin? That deep, marrow-freezing cold that makes you think, just for a second, that warmth might be a myth you once dreamed up? Now, imagine that cold is the last thing you ever feel. That's where our story begins tonight. Welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Curiosity Compendium. Tonight, we're venturing into the heart of the Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. It's January 1959. A team of 9 experienced ski hikers, students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, led by a man named Igor Dyatlov, are on an expedition. They're young, fit, and skilled. This is their element. Their goal is to reach a mountain called Otorten, a name that, in the local Monsey language, supposedly means "don't go there." They never made it. What happened to them on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, which translates ominously to Mountain of the Dead, has become one of the most enduring and chilling mysteries of the 20th century. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident. So, let's set the scene with what we know for certain. The group was supposed to send a telegram back to their sports club by February 12th. When that didn't arrive, it wasn't immediate panic. These were tough, capable people. Delays happened. But by the 20th, with still no word, a search party was launched. What they found on February 26th is the first layer of the mystery. Their tent, on the slope of the Mountain of the Dead, was discovered from a distance. It was cut open from the inside, not slashed by an outsider, but carefully, methodically cut by the hikers themselves, as if they needed to get out in the most urgent, frantic way possible. And then they just fled into the brutal, sub-zero night, in their sleeping clothes, some barefoot in the deep snow. The tent was full of their belongings, their warm clothes, their boots. They just ran. Now, the search party followed the footprints. They were the footprints of people running, not walking. And they led down the slope, into a sparse forest near a creek. About a mile from the tent, under a large cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies. These 2 men were wearing only their underwear. They had built a small fire. The bark of the cedar tree was torn off, high up, as if someone had climbed it, perhaps to try and see the tent or to escape something on the ground. Over the next 2 months, as the snow melted, the rest of the story, or at least the rest of the bodies, were found. The remaining 7 were scattered between the cedar tree and the tent, some frozen, some with traumatic injuries that didn't make sense. And this is where the facts take a sharp turn into the bizarre. 3 of the hikers had died from hypothermia, but the others, their injuries were catastrophic and utterly perplexing. 1 woman was missing her tongue. 2 had massive chest fractures, with 1 having a completely crushed skull. The official autopsy noted the force required was comparable to a car crash. But here's the crucial, haunting detail. There was no external trauma, no bruising, no lacerations on the skin over these devastating injuries. It was as if they were hit by an immense, concussive force that left their skin untouched. Some of the victims' clothing showed elevated levels of radiation. So, we have the stage, an abandoned tent cut from the inside, a panicked flight into certain death, a series of inexplicable, violent injuries, and a sprinkle of radiation. For decades, this has been a playground for theories, from the plausible to the paranormal. Let's walk through the main contenders. The official Soviet investigation, closed in 1959, blamed a compelling natural force. That's bureaucrat for "we have no idea." Later explanations have ranged from an avalanche. It's a popular one. The theory goes that they heard what they thought was an avalanche, cut their way out in panic, and fled. The hypothermia victims succumbed first. The ones with the traumatic injuries, the theory suggests, might have fallen into a ravine or been buried under snow that later melted. But many avalanche experts have poked holes in this. The slope was too gentle. The tent was still standing, not buried. And an avalanche doesn't explain the lack of external wounds or the radiation. Then we have the military theories. Maybe they stumbled upon a secret Soviet weapons test, some kind of infrasound device, or a parachute mine exercise. That could explain the internal injuries and the panic. The radiation could fit here, too. Or, some suggest, an encounter with the indigenous Monsey people turned violent. But the search party found no other footprints, no signs of a struggle at the tent. And the nature of the injuries just doesn't match hand-to-hand combat. And of course, where mystery exists, the supernatural rushes in. Alien encounters, Yeti attacks, mysterious energy weapons from the Earth itself. These are the stories that fuel campfire tales, but they don't give us answers. Only more questions dressed in different costumes. For me, Ibnul, the engineer and the storyteller, the most compelling explanations often lie in the intersection of rare natural phenomena and human psychology. One theory that has gained modern traction is the idea of a slab avalanche, a specific, sneaky type that can occur on mild slopes, triggered perhaps by the hikers themselves digging a platform for their tent. The panic, the flight, that fits. But the injuries? Another natural phenomenon might explain that: katabatic wind. This is a powerful, gusting wind that can rush down mountain slopes with hurricane-like force. Imagine you're already disoriented, freezing in the dark. A sudden, silent, and immense wind blast hits you. It could throw you, cause those crushing internal injuries against the hard, snow-packed ground or trees, without leaving a mark on your skin. The radiation? Their equipment contained thorium lantern mantles, a common source for hikers at the time. It's a piece that might have been innocently, tragically mundane. But here's what stays with me: the human element. I think about leadership, about group dynamics under extreme, unimaginable stress. Igor Dyatlov was an experienced leader, but this was a situation beyond any manual. That decision to cut the tent and run, it wasn't a reasoned choice. It was a primal, collective flight response triggered by something they perceived as an immediate, intense danger. Something that made the deadly cold outside seem like the safer option. That psychological breaking point is, in some ways, more haunting to me than any Yeti. It's a reminder that our civilized minds are a thin layer over a much older, more instinctual operating system. In the end, the Mountain of the Dead keeps its secrets. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is a puzzle where the pieces we have don't seem to belong to the same picture. A cold case that has, quite literally, frozen a moment of sheer terror in time. It reminds us that the world still holds pockets of profound mystery, and that sometimes the most unsettling answer is that we may never truly know. What we are left with is a story of young adventurers, full of life, stepping into the vast, beautiful indifference of nature, and a reminder that curiosity, the very force that drives us to explore and to understand, sometimes leads us into the heart of a darkness that doesn't want to be illuminated. Their story is a monument to the unknown. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the cold. If you enjoyed this episode of the Curiosity Compendium, please share it with someone who loves a good mystery. You can find more stories like this and learn about the work we do at Light Knot Studios. That's lightknotstudios.com. Until next time, stay curious, but maybe keep a flashlight handy.